I will turn my volume up. I will turn y'all's volume up.
It's okay, you'll regret that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. It's been so long since we've got to see your beautiful, beautiful faces. And welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussion. And we're coming back to it, to something that has probably been expected and perhaps anticipated by some of our past viewers. Our general thoughts on the Pathfinder 2nd edition and its rulebook itself, the physical thing itself, but also the rules in it, how it's been presented, and things like that. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Just our general impressions. We're not going to get all crazy and go for like an hour or 2 hour or 3 hours jabbering about the rule book and the rule set this time. So you can rest assured it won't go that long. But we are going to give our general impressions of it so that you can kind of get where we're standing on it. First off, we have get that out of the way.
Adult content waiver.
Yes, we do have the adult content waiver. This is an adult podcast that sometimes features adults, that sometimes use adults' language. You have been warned. And just click that there. There we go. And we've got Kane and Jason for our chat buddies, and Levi will pop in maybe a little bit as we're going on. Depends if he gets done with his one shot. For now, though, let's just go ahead and start looking at what we're talking about, because ain't no need to keep jabbering on when we can get to the content. So, the first thing to talk about is, I guess, the presentation of the book itself, the quality of the book itself. The only one of us three that has it is Jason. And you were saying, Jason, that it's a nice presentation, it's a quality production?
Yes, this is a quality production. You're not talking micro-thin pages. This is something that should stand years of good use. It's nice finish to the pages. The art is good. The format is good. I'm a little older and normally wear glasses, but they keep the font at a reasonable size, so there's no microscopic stuff like I've seen in other rule books where, we have this much content, but if we put it in a smaller font, we can use less paper and still charge the same amount. But I would say it's well set up, usable.
In the top left of that page, is that an apparatus of the spider? What is that?
No, that is the inexplicable apparatus, a level 18 item. Basically, it's a couple extra arms to help you build things.
Yeah.
You become Doc Ock.
Only more dungeony and dragony.
Or more like, Inspector Gadget, but hopefully competent.
Yeah. I don't know, for his level...
Job done.
Yeah, he got the job done. He did pretty good. Oh, Levi is here.
That I am.
Cool. So, we just started recording. So we're talking...
Yes, I heard your intro, I heard him start talking about that. I just also don't have the book, so I didn't want to interrupt with nothing to say.
Okie dokie. Do you have like the PDF?
No, I've been using Archives of Nethys.
Okay, that is an option. That is an option.
It's been updated for 2nd edition. I'm very happy that I have a resource already that I can navigate. I don't have to sift through this PDF.
Yeah, you don't have to sift through the PDF. You can go to the page and you can hit Control F and find what you're looking for. And I mean, you can do that in a PDF sometimes, but not all the time. Yeah. All right then.
But it's very good book, quality book.
So
and hefty.
It's a big hefty. What's the page count on it again?
642 pages, roughly 500,000 words.
Yeah, that works.
And that's cover to cover. So it's a little less than...
The last numbered page is 638.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so, then you have the stuff for the Lost Omens World Guide, which is the, Intersea Primer equivalent, and the new Bestiary.
All right. Now, we were talking about art, and we'll get to it in a minute, but one thing I do want to point out is that they changed their kobold significantly. Their kobold looks a lot different.
I'm going to have to look that up now.
It looks like
looks a lot better.
You think it looks a lot better. I think it looks different. I'm not sure.
All right.
I'm not sure if I like it better or not. It looks a lot more... The red kobolds look a lot more like the red dragon heads. But I'm not sure how to feel about it.
I mean, they're kobolds. They should be more dragony. But I mean, to their respective colors, I suppose.
Maybe. I mean, if they keep it with their colors, that would be interesting. Because we haven't seen that very much in kobolds. A presentation of, like what I did in the game with different kobolds being aligned to specifically different colored dragons. Because most of the time when you see kobolds or in Pathfinder, they're all red and they're all the long face and the horns and stuff. So it'll be interesting. We'll see.
Do they? I haven't personally noticed that they're usually red in Pathfinder.
From what I've seen, they usually are. But they specifically have two different colored kobolds, and they do not look the same in the bestiary. But that's the bestiary.
Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at them now. I'm not sure how I feel about that red kobold. That is quite the noggin on that boy.
Yeah, it's like a shark head. But we'll get to that at some point if we ever go over the bestiary. So, sticking with the game, the presentation itself, it's piezo quality, which means it's going to be a well-produced book. As far as the art goes on the cover, I feel like it's got the same problems we had with the art on the cover before, but, they went with it. The light sources are kind of odd in some of it, and there were just nitpicky things in there that kind of added up into a odd feeling.
It's a Jacobs piece, right? I always feel like Jacobs is very hit or miss. It's either amazing or I don't like it.
Yeah. Like the one on the cover before, the Legacy Pathfinder's cover, I like it a lot. It didn't feel like it was too busy, but there was still action to it. This one feels, I don't know, maybe a bit busy. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to cohesively work with my brain real well.
They have too much bright color next to bright color. There's no good contrast. You have, yes, here I am giving art critique, but it just doesn't have the contrast that it could.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me and for a lot of people, I know Jacobs is very hit or miss, and this one I'm not a huge fan of. A lot of the stuff he draws I really like, but this one I'm not a huge fan of. But we spent 30 minutes the last time we talked about second edition complaining about the cover, so we should probably move.
Yeah, that is true. And one of Kane's pet peeves is the dwarven axes, so we will just put that out there so people know that he doesn't like the way the dwarven axes look, because they wouldn't cut right. But
weapons aren't supposed to be triangular. We stopped doing that historically for a reason. Okay, I'm not. Don't get me started.
so, but yeah, this is a W. Yep, it's right there in the corner. So coming down, the tone as far as colors go in the second page, however, much nicer. It's not pure white. It's got that paper white that they go with in their books. This actually seems to be a bit lighter than their past book, their past core rule book. It doesn't have quite the same drabness on the inside. It's fine. They start to show off the art already, and the reason that I wanted to touch on the cover art is because the cover art, while odd for us, is, I can see how it's all right. Some of this art that we'll come to, I really don't care for much, because it does not seem, the art quality does not seem very consistent to me. And Paizo, not in its first rulebook, mind you, but as it went on, started to get a feel for what it was, what it felt like in its art. And I'm not sure that's being carried forward, especially looking at the bestiary another time. It just feels different. So, we just have basically the introduction and stuff like that happen. Now, I said this to Ross when he was here before he had to get off before we started recording. There are those kobolds that Kane was looking at for the viewers.
They are you down on page
where they're attacking the group?
Yeah, I like this piece, but like these new red kobolds, they feel a little bit more like dinosaurs than they do like dragons. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they're both giant lizards. What's the difference? But you get what I mean when I say that, right?
Yeah. They got like T-Rex heads versus other types of heads.
Did we just?
Yeah,
what happened?
I hear you.
I think we lost. Okay.
I know.
Okay, we lost your video though.
Oh, I'll turn it back on then. I don't know
that's
why I
okay.
did that. Okay. So, but the art up front, like that art piece, you're right. I like that art piece fine. The kobolds do look kind of different. I wouldn't have recognized them as kobolds. I guess I'd put it that way.
I'm not going to say bad because they don't look bad. They're just, I'm not used to it.
Yeah. Which...
It is a newer look.
And I'm willing to get used to new looks. It looks a lot like those pet lizards that you get. The bearded dragons. Their shape of their head. They're like big grown-up bipedal.
That's a beautiful...
So...
And given that they consider themselves draconic in nature, that also kind of, to me, they just looked more draconic. Just kind of but now that you throw bearded dragon in there, yeah, they do look like a bearded dragon, and that would make sense. I mean, just thematically.
Have you seen the ego? Have you experienced the egos on some of those bearded dragons? They think they're dragons.
Yeah, they do. Now that I look at them in profile, it kind of feels like they took a larger lizard's head and stuck it on a kobold's body. I think that's what seems off about it.
Yeah, because all the rest of the body looks pretty much like a kobold. It's a bit beefier. But the head is just weird.
Yeah, they got this big old, very like almost goblin-esque noggin on them, like proportionally.
Yeah. Which might explain why Paizo liked the design.
Yeah.
I do like this art piece with Valeros and Sione not Sione, Valeros, the cleric and
Kira and
yeah, there we go. The fighter, the cleric, and the rogue, fighting the undead horde. That seems pretty good.
They're really all about showing off that shields are good now.
Yeah, with Valeros.
Yeah.
I
Look
mean,
at Valeros. He's got a shield now. Have you seen Valeros' shield? He's got a shield, guys.
Even though now he could technically be the two-handed fighter that he was in the first one without being crummy at it. So, I mean, they fixed the fighter to make him a two-hander that's worth playing, and then they give the two-handed fighter a shield in the art. So,
but guys, have you seen it? Have you seen it though? Have you seen the shield? Have you seen Valeros' shield, guys?
Yeah, but shields are fun though.
They are. No, I agree. I just, they still have all of his weapons on him. He's still got the short sword.
yeah,
He's just never uses it now.
yep.
You can see it even in this piece. He's got the short sword on him. He's got the
Yeah, what if he
arrow.
breaks his shield?
He's got the big old the bastard sword that he always has. But now, guys, he's got a shield, guys.
Yes, and that shield is gonna break.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's already looking pretty beat up.
Well, that's his fault. He should take better care of his shield.
But you've seen how beaten up it is, guys. You've seen it. You've seen him with it.
Yeah.
That would have been him.
The shield that
Yeah.
Valeros has. I can't think of the paladin general's name now.
Selah.
Selah?
Sila. I don't know how they spell it, but it's basically Selah. Like,
I'm gonna look it up now because I feel
Okay.
bad.
it's just basically Selah, like you see in the Psalms when David's writing.
Yeah.
But while he looks up that, we can get to my first kind of, I don't know if nitpick is the right word, but it doesn't.
Oh yeah, Selah.
Sila.
Yeah.
There we go. Sila. 2 E's.
But Selah's always had that big ass shield.
Yeah, she's always been the tank. So the first thing that we come to is the introduction. Pretty standard, not surprising. But my problem with it is so Pathfinder 2nd Edition is supposed to be a easier to pick up, a simpler, mechanically easier to pick up version of Pathfinder this time. It's supposed to be a bit more streamlined, still give you the crunch you're looking for without having to worry about the upfront stuff of getting bogged down in learning. My problem with the way it's presented is I feel like it's way too wordy. And this carries through into the other parts of the way the book's presented, the other publishing of the book. I talked about this with Ross beforehand. So the introduction in this one goes for 20 pages or something, 20 plus pages. You know how long the introduction is in the first Pathfinder core rulebook? Less than 10 pages. So why would a book, a core rulebook that's marketed to people who arguably already know how to play, need to have...
Because they have to put all this stuff in the beginning of it in case, this is your first RPG. That has to go into all those books.
They did it in this one in less than 10 pages.
I mean, yeah, I don't have a rebuttal for that, but I agree with I agree with Paizo that these key term sections needed to be here. This roleplay example, I don't think needed to be here, but I understand why it's there. You could have done without that, but I think the key terms needed to be here. I think an explanation of the difference between exploration and downtime needed to be here. The explanation of encounters could have been shorter, but a lot of this comes in as stuff that I understand it's here because if this is your first RPG, tabletop RPG, a lot of people come into RPGs having never played them before with a lot of preconceptions about what what a tabletop RPG game is.
Mm-hmm. And I get that, but that was also the case when the first one was written. And arguably, less people are going to come into Pathfinder 2nd Edition not having an idea of what a tabletop game is, because tabletop's more mainstream than it's ever been.
That's true, but I still think you need to make the allowance for people coming into it for the first time. Oh my god, this example of play goes on for a while.
Yeah. And it takes up a lot of space. And one of my problems with this particular rulebook, it is beautiful in its presentation in many cases. But in the word count, I feel like there's a lot of unnecessary repetition and a lot of just wordiness for wordiness sake. Because there's a lot of things, they cover basically the same things that they did in less than 10 pages. But they take almost twice as many pages or more. And it's not to knock it. I understand you need to know these things, but like the stuff they're telling you here, they repeat it later in the place where it's actually talked about. And they go over it again. So
that was a problem that also existed in first edition.
It did, but as we go through, you can see that it's one of the problems that in the same class chapters, you'll have things that were written 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 times that you read it the first time they wrote it to you in that chapter, but it's repeated again and again. And what that does is it pads the word count and it makes the thing seem longer than it actually has to be.
It also makes it so that way you only have to read your own class, but it could have very easily... Like, there is some benefit to it, but I mostly agree with you.
Well, what I'm meaning is, even in that one class, they'll repeat things 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times. They'll repeat this. This is what a trait is, and then you have this trait, and it does this, and this trait, and this is what, and then you go down to the next trait. A trait is this, and and it'll give basically the same spiel of information, but you're not actually getting new information. You're just getting the same words over again, or phrased differently. It's just the same thing. I don't bring this up to nitpick necessarily. I bring this up because if this is what we're going to see in the future for Paizo, then we're going to run into some problems with the quality of the splat books, the quality of the books themselves actually giving you information and not just being overpriced fluff pieces. So, that's...
Well, I mean, we'll have to... That remains to be seen.
Arguably not, but I will concede that I would rather let it to be seen than to say right now be pessimistic. So
that you would rather right now be pessimistic?
No, I'd rather not.
No.
I'd prefer to not have my pessimistic view of it realized. I'd rather have a more realistic view of it than my full-on pessimistic view of, oh, they're going to run this as hard and as fast as they can.
I'm curious as to whether or not every splat book or every additional book from here on in is going to have spells in it again.
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
I hope so.
It will.
Why?
Because
Why?
look at one of the things. The 8th chapter is the Age of Lost Omens, a lore chapter. Why is a lore chapter in? It's completely lore. Why is a lore chapter in a rulebook?
I think I would include the lore chapter in the core rulebook, so I didn't have to buy the world guide.
But they already know they're coming out with the world guide. It's literally advertised at the back.
I mean, it's out. Like the Lost Omens world guide is.
So
like
this,
it exists.
So chapter 8 is literally redundant.
But it also, I can defend it a little bit because it's showing the differences between Galarian version 2.0 and Galarian from Legacy Pathfinder.
Okay.
Because you have things like the World Wound. Well,
Spoilers.
The World Wound is no longer the World Wound.
Yep.
And,
I would say, like, if I were designing it conceptually, seeing as they already had all the lore written out and designed for the Lost Omens World Guide, I wouldn't have minded Paizo released a little update that wasn't entrenched in one of the books. Like, just removed... Isn't it, 20 pages in the book?
It's a substantial portion, I mean, relatively speaking, for it just being lore. It's pretty...
It's like a mini book on its own.
Right. It's a splat book on its own. And...
Right, to me, if you want to have that without having people having to buy the Lost Omens Guide to get an idea, say you want to have that out so people can play Pathfinder Society with some rough idea. Right?
Right.
I'd say releasing the big hits of what's going on with that online separate from the core rulebook would make more sense to me.
Yeah, because how long is Chapter 8?
417 to 442.
30 pages.
So 30-ish pages.
Yeah.
Where
So,
the World
about
Guide
that
is 120. The
And
full
that's-
World Guide is 120 pages.
So
And-
it's like a fourth of it.
The glossary and the index and everything.
So,
But all of that is half a page of picture, pretty much, with
yeah. It's like the Inner Sea Guide pages, but you don't actually get the information that the Inner Sea Guide gave you. Now, that's not even touching on how I don't like the way they divided the lands up, but that's for its own video, because that's not how societies divide lands up. But whatever, Paizo, that's whatever. The Age of Lost Omens chapter, and this comes from somebody who liked having the lore for Starfinder in the back of Starfinder. I liked that, but you know where it was? It was in the back.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at the glossary, I'm not sure why this shows up in the middle of the book instead of at the back.
Because they put it before playing the game, which is where most of the rules, the actual rules of playing the game are. They put it before game mastering, and they put it before crafting and treasure. Not before equipment, but before crafting and treasure. Which shows,
that's weird.
It shows their priority for their lore. And what it does is it intricately weaves in all of Galarian to 2nd edition. So Pathfinder 2nd edition is Galarian.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to come into this video talking about all the stuff that I like now more than I did in the playtest, but that's irksome. That's weird that they would put all this fluff in here the slap middle of the book, when it could be put behind the rules.
Mm-hmm. Because this,
I mean, I guess the game world is very important. It's integral to how you view the character and play it in the world. But let me make the character before I, have to worry about all that other nonsense.
There's also the idea that there's a bit of, not conceit. I'm not talking about conceited in a bad way, but pride coming in. That Paizo thinks that this Age of Lost Omens is going to be relevant to the majority of people's play. It's not. Most people play homebrew. It's just how it is. Most people play some version of homebrew. You may play in Galarian, but most of the time, even if you're playing in Galarian, it's some kind of homebrew. And most people that I know that play games like playing homebrew and will occasionally go into things that were made like APs and stuff. The only reason we've done Rise of the Runelords is we originally did it so that someone who was new, a couple people who were new, could come in on an adventure, have it kind of structured out, and so on and so forth. And we hadn't played it before, so we were like, okay, we'll play this. But we're not there because we're super engaged in the story, because the story is fragmented. It's across several APs. It's a huge adventure path. It's not, there's so much there to have to buy into. Whereas most people are going to play in their home games with their buddies over beer and pretzels or beer and pizza. And they're just going to want to slash monsters and raid tombs, or they're going to want to do, if they're into that type of game, they're going to want to do an intricate high-level diplomacy type game. But very little of that's going to happen actually in Golarion or be affected by anything in Chapter 8. So those 30 pages that are devoted to that don't flesh out the rules. They don't flesh out they don't give more choices. They don't present us with they don't present us with any archetypes. They only give us multi-classing options. They don't present us with archetypes. There's no pirate. There's no cavalier. That's coming in a splat book later. Even though you had it in the playtest. And
they needed to be reworked too.
They did. But I think it's all fair to say that could have been reworked and you could have had like archetypes or something else that could have add a lot more rule flavor and fun to the game, rather than something that over half of their buyers aren't going to use.
Let's talk about stuff we like.
Okay.
I know that's new for this channel, but can we talk about something we enjoy?
Us guys just getting curmudgeon. Adam's just so curmudgeon-y about his old stuff. All right, we'll move on. Things alike, I definitely like the 3-action activity system.
Yeah, no, we also talked
sweet.
about that before. I'm a big fan of the 3 actions per turn and them not being split up into like dirty little hyper-specific categories.
Yeah.
It makes the action economy much easier to learn and much easier to implement, in my opinion.
And balance.
Yes, because Lord knows I've had to explain the difference between an immediate action, a swift action, a free action, a move action, and a standard action so many times.
Yeah.
So many times. Oh my goodness.
And now we have a nice visual cheat sheet for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm also very excited about. I'm really glad that I can just look at a feat or an ability and like I know how long it takes to do that thing.
Yeah.
You know what type of resources you're spending immediately. That's really nice. And all that stuff before was mainly about Paizo and its publishing practices and what I see in the future for it, unfortunately. This right here, the mechanics of 2E are sound. They're pretty tasty. Pretty tasty.
The I've only gotten a chance to sort of skim some of it, but I did make a character to sort of get a feel for some of the rules, and so far it feels very solid. I don't feel like there are a lot of playing Legacy. You can sometimes feel like you have so many options, and then out of those so many options, only a couple fistful of them are worth taking, and the rest is just either very niche to a specific build or just not very good.
Yeah.
But I struggled to find options that I genuinely disliked or felt I would never get use out of building a character now. And the other thing I will say is dwarves feel tough as hell now. Like dwarves didn't feel like super. They didn't feel like archetypally rugged, like a lot of people imagine them to be. Aside from some buffs to spells and poison, they feel tough now.
Yeah. A lot of the races get to have that. When you're going through character creation doesn't, for me, feel a whole lot different. It's different mechanically, but the process that you go through, like especially with the ability scores, is not overly complicated, and it's really easy to get into. It is a simpler system to start to work through. You got your ABC, and that's a good acronym. I like that they thought about that when they did it. Your ancestry, your background, and your class, and those affect your character. I'm a little bit that I don't think there's a way to do point buy based on the rules. Not that there's not a way, just that it's not in the book. I'll say it that way.
I'd say I don't think there's. Just do it the way you did before.
Yeah, that seems to be about what you'd have to do. They do give you the alternate. Their basic one is start with 10 and work your ways around it, and go up and down as you need to, which is actually fine for starting out. They don't have any arrays set either, which actually is a little bit more odd than not having point buy, because arrays allow for a lot of quick build. But I guess you don't really have to have it if you know what they are. You just figure out what the array is. They're basically the same. All the scores are basically the same as they were in Legacy. So
yeah,
you can just
the modifiers and everything haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is your ability advancements after 18 are 1 instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once you hit 18, getting that superhuman bit is hard.
Yeah.
Which also feels like it was influenced by 5th edition, because you can't get your ability scores higher than 20 without the aid of magic.
Yeah. I never did like that about 5e. I mean, you're going to have people that break it anyway. Why bother restricting them?
Oh, well, why bother playing with the system at all if you're afraid of people breaking it?
I'm not afraid. That's the point. Why are they afraid of people breaking it? If you're going to cap it out at a certain, 20, why? Is it really going to make that much difference? They're going to find ways to get done what they want done anyway. But that's beside the point. That's 5e. So they do go through some of the different things. I kind of like the spread they have on pages 22 and 23 as far as giving you an idea. You can point a new player to this particular part of the book and be like, okay, right here, this is where you can see these pages have the overview of the ancestries and the overview of the classes, and you can breeze through that and then go to the class you want to look at. I remember us last time being like, oh, I like those icons that they have for the classes, and now that they've colored them in and done junk with them, I'm like, I don't like those icons they did for the classes. So, I don't know.
We gotta look at them again.
Yeah, page 22 and 23.
No, I still like most of them. I maintain what I said before about the barbarians being kind of weird, but I like the rest of them. I think they're still fine.
I think the monk looks weird.
Oh, yeah, now that I'm looking at it. It's very difficult to tell that it's a pair of fists with hand wrapping.
Yeah. And the champion looks, you can get close to it and see what it is. The coloring, I actually preferred the monochrome styled coloring over the colored in stuff, because it seemed like a crest or something they would hold, rather than, oh, it's a pretty painted picture of what their icon is or something. Like it's an app that they click or something. It's an app icon.
Some of the designs feel busy.
Okay, part of it to me shows a very trying to find the proper word, Eastern Oriental design and color schematic.
Oh, on the color, you know what it looks like? It looks like someone took the icons to their kids and they said, hey, color these in. And the kids said, all right, we're going to use all the colors. And they just used all the colors, because there's chartreuse, there's like teal in here, there's this odd purple violet thing going on.
The alchemist looks fine. The bard mostly looks fine. I think it could have just been the harp. Like the champion could have just been the shield and sword. I think my problem with them is there's too many things. They could have just been like pick one thing.
Yeah, pick something.
You tried to make a little icon, and then you filled in your icon with too much little things.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's just too much red.
There is a lot of red in Pathfinder.
Red is...
The blood of your enemies?
Yes, but they've kind of gone overboard with the red.
Oh,
Don't get me wrong, I like red.
ooh, that sorcerer icon. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, what are those colors? Ooh.
I told you, someone gave the page to the kids and say, okay, color it in, and the kids just wanted to use all the colors.
I thought you were just complaining up until now, but oh my. Oh, that's so iridescent.
Was that Kane saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were just being a grumpy old man"?
Yeah,
But
see?
no, there really is
Same
something
thing.
to
Saying
it.
it's just complaining is the exact same thing as, oh, you're just a grumpy old man. That's
See, it's the beard. The grumpiness comes with the beard.
You're
Just give
older
it
than me.
time, Kane. Just give it time. The grumpiness comes with the beard, especially as the white starts to come in.
Oh, I started with white. When this beard first started coming in, the middle of it was shock white.
Oh, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
But I had this little one right here that just boing all the time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay out of this part because
Yeah.
this sure is not blonde, I'll tell you.
Yeah, he's too young for this
Wow.
conversation. So,
Yeah, his color hasn't come in yet.
so, Levi, you've been quiet. Did you have anything to say about the class icons? Like I said, I like the pages themselves, the idea behind the pages, but the icons were just like,
I'm not sure where they are in Archives of Nethys,
Oh, that's right. You don't get to see
Oh,
them.
yeah.
I forgot.
so I was just silent because it's like not my part.
That's odd. They should. I would have figured they'd put them in there.
They might have.
I feel like, what is his name, Rob, whoever curates Nethys was probably also looked at those and was like, oh, those are colors.
Those are from. You know what it feels like? It feels like this is from the 80s. These icons are from the 80s, and they were made by pop stars for pop stars in the 80s.
I don't want to relive tabletop gaming in the 80s. All
Nope.
right, I've heard enough.
All right.
I don't.
So the character sheet.
Nope, you're good. I'm looking for it on Archives of Nethys and I just can't find it.
All right.
I don't need to be accused of any more devil worship than I already am.
And for those of us who did a lot of RPGs during the 80s,
Did you also do a lot of devil worshipping?
no.
Oh, you're lost, bud.
There are certain
Not that-
certain religious practices that involve a lot of coitus in those type of situations. So,
Yes, which would have probably made it a big draw in my hometown, but let's just say we had a lower than average teenage pregnancy rate. So,
all right.
so
The next page is basically walking you through. I do like that they do this, that they have it numbered from like 1, 2, 3, 4 happens here and stuff like that. It seems a bit busy, but that's just the nature of the beast on that one, I think.
Yeah, it's a character sheet.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all crammed together.
Yeah. And that's spoilers for what we think about the character sheet itself way at the back. There's nothing wrong with the character sheet itself. It just seems really brown. As Kane put it, it's just really brown.
It's very brown. It's very brown and blue. Which, I mean, normally are colors I like together, but this, it's very It's very MS Paint tooly.
Oh yeah. It's very. I'm telling you,
and-
90s and 80s. It's what it looks like.
And the process it takes you through it really is pretty much color by numbers character creation. It's
So for somebody new, this is definitely good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a process, you have a process.
You could throw this book to a bunch of people who want to play a tabletop RPG. You could throw them this book, and even if they had never played before, they can play Pathfinder with this.
Oh! The voluntary flaws rule got changed.
Oh yes, that's brutal. You can do that, but man, that hurts.
Yeah, but it's no longer like take the flaw for no benefit. At least you get something now.
Okay, so tell the people what you get.
Okay, so as it reads, sometimes it's fun to play a character with a major flaw, even if you're not playing an ancestry that imposes one. You can elect to take 2 additional ability flaws when applying the ability boosts and ability flaws from your ancestry. If you do, you can also apply 1 free ability boost. It's still not very good,
Yeah.
but it's a lot better than the take penalties for no gain.
Yeah. I feel like it's a lot more like, oh, the dog hasn't eaten yet, we'll throw him a bone. Rather than, oh, the dog hasn't eaten yet, we'll feed him.
Yeah.
So
Because they still don't want you to take penalties extra.
Yeah.
you can.
But
At least you come out
like
something.
the important thing to me is that like you can get something, and you can also play like and like a sickly dwarf mechanically, because like you can apply both of those flaws to something that already has a boost.
That is fair.
So you can turn that dwarven boost. So like it
No, you can't apply more than 1 ability flaw to the same ability.
I thought it specifically stated that you could if you had a boost to it already.
Allow me to continue reading, and if I am wrong, I will shutteth thine fuck.
There are weird specific rules to make sure you can't like break past their number limits that they like to do, because they still want to ensure that you can only get an 18 at level 1.
Yes, no, you are correct. You can apply both of them to an ability if you are normally receiving a boost to that ability.
I remember because that was a part I particularly liked, that you could definitely... Now, you're weaker in general, but you could play a race against type in that way.
Yeah, so you could be a sickly dwarf or a clumsy elf or a more annoying gnome.
A morose gnome.
That's how you get your Swerfneblin. Gotcha.
The Swerfneblin, do they have a penalty in the charisma?
Minus
Yes.
4.
Ooh.
It's horrible.
Living underground makes you surly and unlikable. I wonder if that's a statement on basement dwellers. I feel like someone brought up the Darklands races and took a shot at neckbeards. That's what that is.
Oh.
Now, not to draw us too far off track, but consider the neighbors of these Swerfneblin. You have Drow, you have Drugar, you have Troglodytes, you have
They're not-
Aboleths.
Yeah, but Durgar also take a -4 to charisma.
Yeah, that's because
They
they're
slave people.
They're the Foxconn of dwarves. They put out a so-so product and work you to death to make it. So, not that I have an opinion on Apple products.
All right, getting back on track. So the alignments are still the same. You go from lawful good to chaotic evil, or lawful evil to chaotic good, however which way you want to do that. The law and chaos thing. That's pretty standard for most of your tabletop games nowadays, or a lot of them. I can't say most of them, because a lot of them are branching away from it. But it still exists. It's still just as irrelevant as it ever was. So.
It has a little bit more fun on deities, because certain ones are the really, really annoying ones. You have to be specifically their alignment.
That's fair.
Like Lamashtu, you have to be exactly chaotic evil.
In 2E you do?
Yes, to get their stuff. If you look in the deities section.
Okay.
It's Lamashtu and Asmodeus, and probably someone else.
I do appreciate
I'm going off of memory.
I do appreciate it when they do that type of stuff. I think that was present in Pathfinder in the playtest. Yeah, I think that was present in the playtest when I made my cleric of Pharasma. But Pharasma was a neutral, so it didn't really matter, which may have been why I didn't remember right off the top of my head. But in general, unless you're serving a deity, it usually doesn't matter. So.
Yeah. It's more useful for understanding the outsider beings than it is for understanding characters.
Yeah. You're not, like, detect alignment doesn't, like, a paladin doesn't do it the same way he used to. Or they used to, so. It gives you information on leveling up, so on and so forth. And we come to one of the art pieces that I think is pretty, but not necessarily in keeping with Pathfinder's established look. I may be wrong. When we get to ancestries and backgrounds. And otherwise, I'm pretty fond of the way they decided to work ancestries and backgrounds. It was one of the things that I thought was good about the playtest. You have the dwarf, you have the elf, all of these different races. Well, to use the appropriate vernacular, these different ancestries, and these ancestries are, I think, for the most part, they're pretty well mechanically fleshed out. You've got your dwarves, which are going to be, like Kane was pointing out, really stocky and really sturdy and stuff like that. You've got, they've got a lot going for them in what they have. I do have something of a nitpick, a problem with some of their heritages, because certain heritages will give you resistance against elements. Like the dwarf has fire, and then the elf has, if I remember right, they have Arctic elves. Yeah, Arctic elves that can do cold, basically. But those are just, they're basically the same heritage, just with a different element. And they appear on multiple, they appear on different ancestries. Which, I feel like if you were going to do that, you might as well have just made them a general ancestry feat or something like that people could take.
Yeah. At most, say this is more likely to be taken by an elf than most.
So.
Right, like have a general ancestry sections. Say for the Arctic, like here are some ancestries that are more likely to have members of them that are this way.
Well,
at most, but it seems best as just a generic.
Right, like you could just do it like generic, have the tag, because tags are how they, I think they call them traits, or how they, yes. The traits of a feat are how you identify what you have to have for that feat. So you could say, for the Arctic or the Forge, instead of having those elemental things on there, you could have just made general heritage on the feat and say you can take your racial heritage feats or one of these heritage feats. Or You can take a racial or a general heritage feat, and then you can have lots of races be able to say, well, I'm from this hot climate, so I'm resistant to fire. Or I'm from the Arctic, so I'm resistant to cold. And
that does feel like an oversight in the heritages.
But they do have the feat which allows, it's the adopted feat. So you can take a level 1 ancestry trait or ancestry feat from a different race.
But you can't take a heritage.
Right. That's...
Yeah.
Because heritages are more physiological than cultural. But...
So I think it would have worked better if they'd have done it in like a general thing and had a pool of those, because this is why I think this is why I'm of the opinion that this is my pessimistic opinion coming out again. If you thought Pathfinder Legacy had bloat, just you wait. Because if they're going to put... If they've got Arctic elves, well, they've got to have jungle elves. And what about these other elves? And these elves over here? Or what about these dwarves that live over here and that dwarf that lives over there? Or what about these halflings that travel all over the place? Desert halflings. What are they? And so without general feats, general heritage feats...
That's what they have.
They're all bald. They're all secretly Smurf Neblin that came to the surface. But because they don't have these general heritage feats or general heritages, rather than, and they have these specific heritages that grant those elemental resistances, you're going to bump into that bloat that's going to happen from just so much, when it could have just been solved with, oh, those are just general feats. That's a general heritage feat. Or a general ancestry feat. But that's just me on that particular thing. I do think that overall heritages work well. If you take away the ones that don't have anything to do with the elements, the others feel quite a bit more flavorful. Like a seer elf, or a whisper elf, or a woodland elf. They're going to feel different. Those are physiological things that are going to be different for them, and it's interesting, it's fun. It adds something to the character, especially because of skills being so much more important and so much more versatile in PF2E. So,
Unbreakable Goblin.
Oh yeah.
I start out. I'm playing one.
I like that.
I am a goblin.
You take half damage from falls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when you get you run up to, you're this angry frothing barbarian goblin, and you run up to the other barbarian and you say, toss Nasher quick, and you take half damage from the fall, and technically throw distance is falling damage, so they throws you take no damage, and you smack into your enemy, and then you just claw into their face. So I could see that being very fun.
Gonna see a lot of feral Nasher barbarians in 2A.
Oh yeah, that would just be
Y'all have
hilarious.
given me a thought.
I will
Not for this character, but next one.
I will say, I think that the gnomes have an interesting thing with the chameleon gnome.
Ugh.
That they can that their colors can shift. I think that's interesting. They can shift
Yeah.
it based upon where they want to blend into. From my understanding, on the lore that they're trying to work with the gnomes, is they're kind of veering away. They've been trying to veer away for a while of the tinkering style and making them more attached to the Fae instead. Which I think we talked about it before, which with, to me, gnomes are tinkerers. They're not explicitly Fae connected.
Well, that's also like a WoW thing. That's they were more popularized as like a race of little clockwork tinkering small folk by things like World of Warcraft and certain fantasy series.
It may just be the zeitgeist thing. It may be.
Yeah.
But I've always seen them that way, so... Because none of their heritages that I'm seeing have really anything to do with tinkering at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's all
they
magic.
also, like... Gnomes are a fantasy race that doesn't exist in the Tolkien-verse, so they're not as heavily influenced by that as a lot of other races tend to be almost unavoidably in fiction.
I will say something that I would have preferred to see over any of these heritages for the gnome is the bleachling gnome, because I find the idea that they theoretically could just keep on living if they could just stay interested in things.
I feel like they just become droopy hound, though.
I think that's a possibility, yeah. I can see where that would
We're
come.
We're going on an adventure.
Oh, boy.
The closest
Find
to
the gap
tinkering
chart.
would be gnome obsession, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You pick a topic and you're really into it, but it's not like tinker specific.
Yeah, that's a lot more like a capricious fae that gets really obsessed with something than it is necessarily a tinker.
It's just as close as I can get.
African swallows.
He just follows the African swallows everywhere.
Whether or not they carry coconuts great distances.
I think that the gnomes kind of exist in this place where they don't have a lot that's just theirs. They're that small race that's a lot of the times portrayed as not necessarily jolly, but at least excitable and happy or interested, which is kind of a halfling thing. But then they're also dangerous and exuberant and stuff like that, which is more of a goblin thing. And the tinkering thing has been shifted more towards the goblins than it has the gnomes, and then the gnomes are getting the fae thing, but you know what? That's what the elves thing was. You know, traditionally, the idea of the first world. Now, not in Pathfinder. Pathfinder, they're aliens. So,
That's true.
It's true. In Pathfinder, they're aliens. So, I mean, in their own internal lore, they have their own place, but in the zeitgeist of the way people think, people connect elves to fae, even though in the actual lore of Pathfinder, there's not that connection. So,
Nah, they're from the moon.
say that moon speak, as Anderson from Helsing Abridged would say. All right,
You've taken me, man. Just get a look at this absolute unit of a goblin they have down below the gnomes with his giant forky spoon and the biggest. I know he's small, but like still the biggest pickle I've ever seen.
Oh, you haven't seen that's not even the biggest pickle. Just like big pickles, because they're just cucumbers.
I know, but I struggle to find a jar in which to put a pickle that size.
A gallon-sized
pickle. More
pickle.
accurately, I suppose, in which to put a cucumber that size. But I've definitely seen cubes
barrels for.
Well, this is true.
I heard...
And given the Iron Gut ancestry, where they can, eat all these stereotypical, stuff that would make a billy goat lose its lunch, that might not be a cucumber pickle. That might be some
meat.
strange gourd.
That is true.
Just put an opo squash and vinegar and let whatever happened happen.
I do. I heard someone say, when in regards to Paizo and their lore, that they're taking goblins and in an effort to try and keep them from being as evil, they're kind of shifting their obsession from fire to pickles. And
Okay.
I just don't.
¿Por qué no los dos?
¿Por qué no los dos? Dos es bueno. Dos es bueno.
Dos es bueno, and those existed in Legacy.
Yeah,
They
dos.
love pickles and fire. Now you've just gotten rid of one of those things.
Yeah, they love.
But
they
they
love
really
fermented
have
foods
not
and fire.
And they still have those who are really fire obsessed.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do have the
Charhide.
charhides.
Charhide, level 1 feat burn it. Let's see. Yeah, it just insanity. Though I will say with goblins, they're very front loaded. Most of their good ancestry feats are level 1.
A lot of the ancestry feats are all level 1.
Yeah.
I like the something straight out of 4th edition, Goblin Scuttle.
You know,
Someone moves next to you, you move.
You take advantage of you step. Yeah. Now it does. See, for all of the wordiness elsewhere, it doesn't say here if that counts towards your movement the next turn. I would think not, because it's a reaction.
Yeah.
So
There's a limit to how many times you can do it, but it doesn't explicitly say that it counts against your movement on the next turn, so I would assume it does not.
no, it does not. You have
as many
Well, 'cause
reactions
the
as
thing
you
is-
have, you can do it, which is one.
Because
So
right, because like it takes a reaction. This doesn't have an idea of you have an amount of movements. It's like you have an amount of actions,
right, because you can
and
move.
it just takes a reaction to do that. Because you can stride.
Yeah, you can move or stride. That's the correct term. Yeah, for an action, so you can move.
So you
move.
could do it 3 times or none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like it. I like the Goblin Scuttle. I think that's good.
Yeah, and then at 9th level you can take Skittering Scuttle, which is up to half your movement instead of just a step.
Do the Goblin Scuttle. Do. Okay.
Do.
No, wait, it'd be like, the Goblin Scuttle. Okay.
Do the scuttle.
Halflings. I like halflings. I like that they're getting their own kind of confectionery and culinary based lore around them, because that does feel very halfling.
The halfling they have on this page, though, does remind me eerily of Vanellope von Schweetz.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, I can see that.
the next halfling looks like he is very intense about his cupcakes.
Yeah.
Very intense.
Yeah, I just gotta look at his face.
I don't know. Somebody made the comparison, and I kind of see it. You know,
His
Andrew
face
from
is so much more detailed than his body.
yeah. I mean, does he
Oh
not
my-
look like a little bit like Andrew from DFC?
DFC.
Dawn Forgecast.
No.
No, you don't.
No,
No.
I don't see it.
Now you're gonna look, aren't you? You're gonna look later, and you'll be like,
No.
"Dang it, Adam! Don't no."
No, it made me think of Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor. I don't know. Looks really familiar though. It's like I've seen that face before on some other body.
The
It's
Sand
in a
People will be
Western.
Back in greater numbers. Yeah, he looks like Ewan McGregor to me.
All right.
Even though Ewan McGregor doesn't play that incarnation of Obi-Wan, it's not important.
So, you can be the lucky halfling, like you want to be. That's a thing for them if you want to be the lucky halfling. And it's thankfully a heritage feat, an ancestry feat, not a heritage. So you don't lock yourself out of it if you pick a different heritage. I will say there's no wasted heritages here, like with the ones for energy resistances. They're not technically wasted, but they could have been more.
Redundant.
So, halflings seem pretty solid. Humans, from what I understand, are still the superior of all races. So,
Okay.
Just
get that. Okay.
So racist, Adam. It's so racist. No, that's racial. Why? Because it's based off of facts and data.
Well, and that humans in Pathfinder have always been the we can do anything race. They're the we're adaptable. That's what humans do. They adapt to things.
I mean, it's a fair assessment of the human race that's what we do. That and we sleep with anything we can get our wangs into. So.
Anyway, we will bet anything that will have us.
Adaptable comes in many flavors.
Yeah.
So,
it even shows up in the heritage. Adapted cantrip, adaptive adept, incredible improvisation, multi-talented, unconventional expertise.
And going back to that fluff thing that we talked about before, or not fluff, but bloat, these human ancestry feats and these halves, these half-elf and half-orc, you can definitely expect to see half other things too come along, because that's already kind of alluded to that and it's also alluded to that humans aren't the only, it says, while humans aren't the only creature that can breed with something, or it alludes to the idea that humans aren't the only ones that can sleep around.
I actually have the text if you want that.
Okay, what does it actually say, so I don't misquote it?
By default, half-elves and half-orcs descend from humans, but your GM might allow you to be the offspring of an elf, orc, or different ancestry. In these cases, the GM will let you select the half-elf or half-orc heritage as the heritage for this other ancestry. The most likely other parents of a half-elf are gnomes and halflings. The most likely parents of half-orc are goblins, halflings, and dwarves.
See, so that right there, it makes me ask, well then why didn't you make it a general heritage feat?
Because that's for the book that's coming up.
Dun dun dun! See?
So I can play my dork.
So, yes, so you can play your dork. And we talked about that in the playtest, and we were like, that would be cool if you could mix the races and do different things with that type of stuff. But the problem is, what do humans have then? An extra feat.
Yep.
And that's it.
An extra feat of basically any type is what they have right now.
And but
there's one, you can get an extra class feat, an extra general feat, an extra skill.
Yeah, the problem is that in a tabletop game, having an extra feat of whatever the type you want is so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mechanically strong, but it's not very... I mean, if humans didn't mentally taste vanilla to start with, if you lose your ability to be the half-breeds, then humans are the milk of ice cream, not even the vanilla.
Hey, I like sweet cream ice cream.
Like, I like milk, all right? It makes a lot of other food taste better.
Yeah, but it's good with other food.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Which is
That
the
is
class in this
if
case.
you're basing how interesting your character is upon how weird the thing you're playing is, I feel like you need to work on your role play. Okay,
Well, you go
That's- I said it.
play your humans and just stick with
I
your
will.
humans then, and just
I
never
will.
play anything else.
No more Kenkus, no more halfling strongmen from the circus. It's humans from now on.
But funny memory on it aside, I like the idea of having half other things. If you're gonna do that, then commit to it. Don't lump it in
I
with
actually
humans.
think it'd been cool if we would have had like half dwarf, half like.
See, Paizo, that's what you could have used all those pages from chapter 8 for. Half things.
I wanted to play a half.
That no, I veto. I don't. That's a bad chapter.
No, the pages from that chapter.
No, that's still a bad chapter. That's getting a little too close to Book of Erotic Fantasy territory.
Hey, I
big
have that
block
book. It's not as risque as people put out there.
diagram of who can breed with what.
No, you don't even ask who. You just say, "Does your GM think it's okay? It's in the game. Do they not? It's not."
Yeah, see, you don't even do it. You just be like, nope. This is what it is. I'm a half dwarf, half gnome. Why? Because I want to annoy my fellow gamers while being surly.
Now half dwarf, half gnome is pretty interesting because which side do you choose to start?
What?
Like, because all
way
of
the
these,
heritage
like, you would
works.
have, right? Which ancestry do you take that heritage feat on? Do you start with the gnome with the half dwarf heritage, or do you start as a dwarf? But my words are flubbing up, but you get the idea. Start as a dwarf and take a gnomish ancestry, or start as a gnome and take a dwarven ancestry.
In
I
my
would probably
opinion,
start as a dwarf and take a gnomish ancestry because the dwarves in Legacy Pathfinder already have like a little teeny tiny bit of Fey relation.
I would say you take the race of your mother.
Oh,
in
like
your
a
backstory.
Pokemon.
And apply the heritage of your father.
Yeah.
I say it depends on whether you're playing the good child of the dwarf that hooked up with a gnome to annoy his parents, or you're the bad child of the couple who got together and are trying to be good dwarves together.
So there you go. But I like the idea of halves. I just don't appreciate that it's. I think the wasted potential of it. It's just, how you don't like sequel baiting. That's really what it feels like when you read some of the stuff. Sequel baiting. So.
Now, admittedly, part of that is just the way things work. We wish it wasn't as gamers.
Well,
but
it didn't work
don't
that
make
way in
everything.
this one. I'm throwing that at you, Paizo. It didn't work that way in this one.
That's the old. You gotta move on, Grandpa.
Well,
That was
because
the
they had
old
most of
new.
their book built from them from 3.5 already. They didn't have to put the money into making their own system.
That's true, but it was an open.
All
It was an open
Paizo
system,
all the time.
and the idea
None of that
was,
Wizards of the Coast nonsense.
if you look in it, the fluff you see in this, in its 600 plus pages, and then try and look and find fluff in this. Very little.
I don't know a core book. What am I, a nerd?
See, that's how you know that you're succeeding in your points that you make, because then they start to make personal attacks, calling you nerds and stuff. Now,
I do not believe I could justify anything I just said as a personal attack, sir. Where are we?
down on 58, I wanted to point out the orc the half-orc look. And this gets into the art thing again. It seems different than the look you have traditionally with the half-orcs in Legacy Pathfinder. It seems a bit more dark, not necessarily gritty, just darker. The jaw doesn't seem as pronounced the jaw and the teeth don't seem nearly as pronounced as I would usually see with a half-orc in Pathfinder. But
well, this one's just a little more human-y.
I don't know, it doesn't look necessarily more human-y.
Same green flavor.
Oh, so all green
model.
people look the same? Is that what it is? Is that how it is?
Same green color, not same green bone structure. Smart ass.
Backgrounds were next. I think backgrounds are done pretty well. I don't have really...
I think they're pretty much the same as they were before.
Yeah.
They do the same thing. You get an ability boost, and you get like a skill thing, or you get like some other minor ability.
And I think from what I can see, they look good. They look pretty flavorful. They're strong in what they're presenting. They add a lot of stuff to your game.
I liked them before, I like them now. Can we talk about Ezrin on page 64? Like someone just slapped that old man through a Final Fantasy filter?
Yeah. He looks like he's not even caring what's happening to Sela, too. She's over there fighting a demon at the gate, and he's like, "Oh, did you read about what happened in the comics today?"
No, the Dow is down 20%.
Oh no, does he become the sexy wizard? Does he secretly start bodybuilding with Valeros?
I mean, look at that hair.
Right? That's crazy.
He's become more fabulous.
He's just so fabulous.
This snapshot of reality.
Yeah.
He took a little too much Gandalf that morning.
he listened. He listened to too much Gandalf that morning, and it affected him.
I need to become an ailer for the day.
But the way you said that, Kane, like it's just put through a filter, or is like this reality. That feels like what some of the art is. It's not necessarily that it's not set in Pathfinder the system. I mean Golarion. It's just like it's a different version of Golarion, which seems weird when compared with the other established version.
That happens in a lot of the art too, because in first edition there's a splash page with Ezrin and Valeros, where Valeros it's very clearly Valeros being killed by a demon.
So, yeah. I can see the Final Fantasy filter on that. But backgrounds seem to work real nice, and they let you get skills, which are important, and they give you a feat for your skills, which is important. Like that warrior is pretty solid. Gives you intimidating glare as a feat. So that's pretty good if you've got any kind of charisma at all.
Which is actually probably more useful than a lot of the lores.
Yeah.
The lores have ended up being pretty useful.
I haven't been playing second edition, so I don't have I don't have perhaps the firmest grasp on whether or not the lores are useful.
Now, languages is what you would pick next, and I think you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a couple new ones, like not new for the game necessarily, but new for the core rulebook.
Mostly Shadow Tongue and Necrol, but Necrol has always been a language. It's just been clarified.
Right.
Shadow Tongue, I think, is just new.
Because if I remember right, it took a while for them to start to say, like, intelligent undead speak their own language.
Yeah.
In Necrol, which always made sense to me, but I always called it Necron.
The slang term for Necrol is gutter speech.
Is it? I thought gutter speech was what a different one for tongues can't. No, that's not in Pathfinder. That's it from WoW. Gutter speak came from WoW because
Where it was
the
Eve's camp.
where it was they did that because the undead players were so foul-mouthed in their comments that they just kept going on. So they officially changed it to gutter speak.
Yeah.
Because they would trash talk
there you go.
all the time.
There you go.
There you go. Those undead rogues and WoW Classic.
Mhm.
Going up and shanking people.
Jotun is just giant. Like, they just changed the name, but otherwise it's the exact same language.
Mm-hmm.
It's spoken by the same creatures. But I think the languages got cleaned up a little bit. They're less hyper-specific to the creature speaking them, which makes sense and is just kind of easy to play. Really, I mean, I get that beholders have their own language, but like, do they need their own language? No, they hate everyone who isn't them. So, do they really even need to speak?
No, see, beholders don't need their own language because, one, they can be telepathic. Two, like you said, they literally hate everybody else. Even other beholders. Who are they going to speak beholder to? They hate each other.
Especially other beholders.
they don't. The only reason they speak beholder to each other is to literally insult each other in their mother tongue.
I mean, if you think of what a beholder is, that honestly seems like the logical reason for why they have a language. That's fine. That's the reason. We've discovered it here. We've solved this puzzle.
Yes, and as we solve this puzzle, we get to page 69 with all of those magnificent icons again.
Nice.
Just look. I'm telling you, somebody threw up psychedelic on some of those things.
It's a little easier to tell what's going on now that they've been blown up on this page, but like, they still feel really busy.
Well, I mean, the point of an icon is to have an image to represent its
yeah, you could have just taken the sickle at a druid. The wizard's fine. That you could have just had a staff for sorcerer, because sorcerers I don't really picture as scroll users. The book and the star would have been fine for cleric. The rogue is fine. They really don't need the blood drops though. Just the shield and the cross weapons for the champion. The ranger could have just been the bear paw. Like the bard could have just been the harp. Like, there's so much crammed into these icons. You could have just left them be.
Yeah. But we're to the classes, and we're already, let me see, we're already an hour and a half, guys. So, we said this wasn't going to be a long one. It's a long one, people. I guess we'll pick up with this around the hearth another time. Maybe.
Well, we'll put in a timestamp for when we stop complaining.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did we stop complaining?
I mean, where we stop, like, really complaining and actually talk about the book.
I mean, I was talking about the book when I was complaining. I don't know about you all. But
talking about the book.
Yeah. All right.
Hurtful.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So, we appreciate you stopping by. Sorry we went long. We will probably go over and do the rest of the book so that you guys can get our thoughts on it. But those are our thoughts on the first part of it. Hopefully you enjoyed at least listening to us rant about our feelings about it. And, you know, in the comments below, you can tell... Let me see which one. Who are we going to pick on? You can tell Levi that, you know, he can talk more, or you can tell Kane that, you know, Canadian bacon ain't all that good, or you can tell Jason
You're wrong.
that
You can tell me just to talk less.
There you go. And you can tell me that I'm just an old man who's clinging to the past. But as always, have a great day. God bless. Bye.
Bye.
No, we weren't salty as old jerky. Not at all.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.